What was your contribution to the designs of the car and the coffee machine, so forth?
I like that, contribution. Sometimes, you know, we praise contribution, we talk about the importance of contribution and teamwork. I firmly believe that. Ultimately, I am the servant, just like everyone else on the team, to the team. But sometimes you get to be the boss. Sometimes you get to say, we think we should make that out of wool. And then the whole thing gets made out of wool. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were going through your career not thinking about like your identity and sort of like what created you, right, your experience. What was that moment where you realized, oh, like I should use wool? My identity is tied to my work. What was that moment? I'm curious.
Well, I was sitting under a beautiful autumn tree. Kidding. I think it's a slow realization. Sorry, I didn't mean to be flippant. It's definitely a slow realization that actually if you have to think about what makes you different to everyone else. And again, you guys, some of you work for really just badass design agencies. Why should somebody come to you and with their hard-earned dollars and ask to collaborate over somebody else? I'm nobody. I don't have a big brand name behind me. But that's okay. Confidence is kind of something everybody can have, regardless. But a situation like that, where you're exposed to competition, essentially forces you to dig deep and think and put two and two together. I did this in a way here in my presentation that I hope you can see resonates. That this is actually the ultimate expression of honesty, is that which we cannot help but reveal about ourselves. You can codify that. You can also make it something you're actively aware of as you express yourself as a creative and as a thinker. And I think those things are really important. That's why I like the American, the Bay Area brand of design thinking, that it forces you to think about other than just what's right there ahead of you. Instead, forces you to look at the society around you and to include people who think wildly differently to you. That's actually pretty unique to the Bay Area. So coming here, going through this horrendous birth of a design agency is what forced me to do that, slowly over years.
Your design includes so much of your identity, and being from a homogenous culture and yet not being really of that culture. Do you have any desire now that you're in the Bay Area to explore more of your Koreanness and more of your ancestry?
Yeah, happily. There isn't much to explore, to be honest with you, because I was half joking when I said that everybody on the island are married to each other. Because it's kind of true. And when I came to Norway, I was a complete anomaly. Back in the 70s, in case some of you thought I was born in the early 2000s, people like me were a rarity. And we were I think that one of the reasons when people start ganging up against each other, sort of figuratively speaking, is because there's like critical mass. And you know, when you're this one funny Asian-looking dude on the island, you actually quickly assimilate. And I've never thought of myself as physically an Asian man until I came to America. Truth. Even in England, I thought of myself as a pure Norwegian, pure. I feel very Norwegian, and I think I'm kind of lucky to do that, to not be conflicted about it. And I realize how important it is to be super aware of your identity as a creative. I love having a team which is not just people like me, gearheads. But, you know, I hired Lily, who sits here. She's a sociologist by training and invaluable to our team. Sam is trained as a psychologist. He hasn't worked much as a psychologist, but, you know, obviously we have designers on our team too. But this, to be aware of where you're from is super important. And the answer to your question is, I was never aware that I'm actually not a pure white Norwegian until I came here and discovered what it means to be ethnically grouped together with someone else, different to the one you think you are, if that makes any sense at all. Yeah.
You seem to identify strongly with a sense of place and the beauty of those specific places. What is it about here? Why are you here? And what is it about this place?
Why am I here? Married to a Yank. Beyond that, I have come to think that America is a window into the future of the rest of the world, of Western civilization. I think that the day will come when a country like Norway, which has so few people, will have an explosion in its population from people migrating away from environmentally disaster zones, things like this. So essentially what we're looking at here is Americans are much more interesting as a society than Norwegians, because what you get here are the kinds of dynamic tensions, sometimes good, sometimes bad, that you can really learn from. You can pick your microcosm and problem sets. I really like that. I think that the best thing I ever did was to leave that Napoleon back in France and set out on this trip across the ocean in every sense of the word. And I have learned here in America what tolerance is. You move to, I have to tell you, and it pains me to tell you this, until about 5 years ago, in Norway, you could buy pepper on the shelves that were called Black Boy. Until only like 5 years ago. People who were gay in Norway they were called homo until about 10 years ago. Imagine a country like that. And if you ask them, Norwegians, whoa, what is this? They'll shrug. It's not that they're mean, they just don't know any better. Everybody who lives in the Bay is forced to learn and to know better. I like that about the place. It's not all happy, happy, joy, joy. I have learned here that somebody spoke about passion once. And passion is sort of, it's the word in the middle. On one side you have pain, on the other side you have pleasure. And it's the tolerance of both and the acceptance of both that kind of defines the Bay Area. That's what I like about it. Norway is easy, it's happy, it's rich, it's homogeneous. It's a dream place if all you want is a Volvo station wagon. Yeah.
I think one of the things about the Bay Area that is really disheartening is we have a deep struggle in our society between the people that have a lot and the people that don't have a lot. One of the things that struck me about my Norwegian heritage is Norway and the Scandinavian countries have a sublime sense of taking care of each other. And I'm wondering if you can comment on some lessons from Norway about living as a more just and equitable society and what you think could be maybe learned from that here in the Bay Area.
I think in total, I'd be happy to answer that in isolation. It's dangerous to talk about the virtues of Norway because it's like talking about the virtues of honesty, being sometimes honest, sometimes dishonest person yourself. To moralize about Norwegian virtue is also to choose to overlook its many pitfalls. Again, I find that hard. I can talk to you about stuff you already know, like single-payer Medicare really works if you wanted to. Equal taxation has a positive benefit for the whole population. A 20% split between the director and the bus driver in salary, really has a leveling effect that benefits society as a whole. Free education is great. All the universities are the same level, more or less. I think this comes all from the fact that, I'm quite happy to trace this back. Why is it like that? It's because we were, like I said, 1 million up until 1930. And when the part of being sophisticated is having to deal with complexity. And in Norway, we never had to do that. That's what allowed us to give spices the wrong names for so long, because we just didn't get that stuff. Here you do. I think those things are much more important, and I think that the things that are good about Norway are so obvious. I don't need to tell you about those. And I think that to get to a place like that is kind of impossible, and that for a country like, you need to be a small place. If there's 5 million people in a whole country, what's that, like 2/3 of the complete Bay Area population? It's nothing. And to have free money pumping out of your ground, that really helps. The reason it's like that is because people stick to a strict, sometimes unspoken rule of conduct. Don't pay somebody else too much money, because I suffer. If he's getting much more money than me, then I'm going to put up a huge stink and strike for 5 months until you give me something more like him this year. That happens all the time, by the way. If sort of a civil engineering association negotiates a 10% pay raise, sure enough, the bus drivers association the same year demands at least a 15% raise. And you know what? That works. They get it. So we have one fundamental thing between politicians and in Norway and here is that we trust ours. You don't trust yours. You've seen your own politicians go from bright and, what was it, Lily, bushy-tailed, to becoming too fat and happy and sort of locked into a system where they don't really have that much wiggle room. In Norway, we swap out our politicians every couple of years. We have a multi-state system. You see, I'm starting to sound like I'm lecturing you. And I really don't want to. It's too easy. I think, honestly, the main reason Norway is so good and happy and fat and relaxed is because we're 5 million people and you are 300. Sorry. Yeah.